came across to me that just came to my mind. I don't really... I know some people wonder about, geez, how do you do so many games? How do you keep so many in mind? Well, obviously I don't keep them in mind. I have trouble keeping the one that I'm playing in mind. I don't tend to know the rules down pat the way maybe some people want to. But to help manage things, knowing all the rules at any one time is almost always unimportant. Right? Except maybe as you're explaining them and you can read them from the book. But for example, here I vaguely remembered that I don't have to come in at El Aguila, I can come in within a few hexes. So I looked that up. And that's constantly the factor in the game. Any game that I play, I try to remember as much as I can of the rules. I may forget some things and remember that. I may misremember things, and that's a problem. But while I still kind of am fresh to the game and haven't, don't have it completely gelled in my mind correctly or incorrectly, I look things up. And that works fine. So in this case, I had to look up, okay. I know the Axis gets the opportunity. They have the initiative. They get to choose who goes first. Now, they also get some points here. Let's see. That's the Commonwealth's points up there. They'll get them on their turn, I believe. But here, I get an Italian refit point. I get an Axis air point, which I'll have to write down. And my maximum armor rating is 1 still. Did I take any hits on the Italians? I did hear one of those big Italian divisions. It's bad to take hits on Italians because that's going to cost me 3 to repair. And I really don't want to do that, even if I collect up 3 points. These things suck, okay? They're not fast because they're foot movement. And in terms of, they only get to move half as many times as the motorized stuff does. And they also don't have a good rate on the roads. When you go on the normal roads, you get such an improved rate of movement for the motorized stuff. It makes the whole campaign flow along the main road with little divergences just for tactical reasons. What I basically will use these for is garrisons of some sort or another. So for example, this is worth 1 victory point. And it will supply that sucker with general but not combat supply. So I can move one of them big divisions there, and then it's not eating up my supply. Otherwise, I just have to keep them near El Aguila to defend that, because that is the source of my supply lines. Speaking of supplies, I look at the Axis convoy arrival table, and there are no air points on Malta. I'm going to roll 2 dice, and this is game turns 9 through 14. There's a bonus. This was an errata. It says 1 through 9 on there. So I get 9. I'm going to get 1 MSU in with my reinforcement pieces. And I'll pile some Italian infantry regiments, which aren't as bad as the divisions, and a couple more German pieces. German pieces are my problem. I don't like taking losses on them. I probably would have been better off if I had used my Italians up here, because then maybe I wouldn't have taken a loss. Now I've got to think real hard and do a lot of calculating and counting and figure out what I can do to get past these barriers, whether or not I can get around them effectively, and also grab these 3 supply points. That's pretty much the sum of what I'm trying to do. I have no ability like in Africa to ship, supply points into here, but I have a lot of movement along the road. Movement's quite quick in this game, mainly because turns are a month long in this, as opposed to, I don't remember what they are, a few days in Africa, I think. I think they're less than a week each. Maybe they're a week each, but this is done at a different scale, and it's interesting to see those different scales of games. A lot of times I think, well, I got one, why did I get the other one? Nah, they both provide a slightly different view. I'm doing most of my thinking offline. I'll try to explain what I did, at least on a few of these turns. This is the effect. The Germans swung through, tried to grab a couple of the MSUs that were left behind by the Brits. They got one, but I think failed on two, or maybe just one. And that's not good. But essentially what I had available to me was 4 MSUs back here. A couple that I started with, I didn't capture any last turn, and then I guess the one this turn. So 3 I started with, 1 this turn. I probably ought to be converting this one and getting it into play. Let's, well, we'll do that at the end of the turn. But, yeah. That's one of the advantages of Tunisia. I can pull supplies out of there. I don't know if Tripoli is a supply source. That's the problem. So I don't know where I'm getting supplies from. So I'm going to have to look at the rules. I'm assuming Tripoli has supply, but I'm not absolutely certain. I may have to live off of shipped in supply on that map no matter what, unless I'm tracing it out of Al-Aqila somehow. So we'll hold on that a little bit. I wouldn't be getting those in a normal game of Desert Fox anyway. It's just, damn, I need stuff. I know I have limitations. I can't move the garrisons. Maybe I'm limited on the supplies as well. Anyway, these two at Benghazi are 12 movement points along the road back to Al-Aqila. And then they're stringing 1, 2, 3, 4, another 6 movement points to here. So I can supply for combat, how many? Well, 4 stacking points is my basis, which is these. That means I don't lose anything if I use them for combat supply. 10 per, but let's call it 8 stacking points is what I can supply safely there for regular general supply. Now I'm going to have this MSU, but that doesn't necessarily help me. I have to get it back for next turn. I'd have to get it back to Benghazi for it to actually help my network at all at this point. So as of right now, I can only support the units that I have here. These other units are sticking around in Benghazi, even though they're motorized and could be very helpful because they're able to trace back to Al-Aqila. I'm sending some infantry, foot units into play. They don't really cost my supply line any effect. I just have to have them in supply for general supply. So, you know, they can garrison the supply line, etc. This guy, I'm actually sending these units maybe down to take the Oasis, and then I can maybe shift this guy upward into the Tobruk situation. Although I really don't want to pay for him in combat. Maybe I'd rather pay for these little guys. But whatever, you know. You do what you can with what you can, and strength points are important, as are stacking points to strength point conversion. So I'm not sure which way I'd rather be going. I probably ought to actually shift some of these over. 1, 2, 3. Let's get these guys out there. That puts them in striking range once I get a supply net coming through here that I can just shoot up. And I probably will have one by that point. Anyway, this guy is just so pathetic. And so is this guy. I really want to use them as garrisons. I'm not that interested in these 2 oases yet. Once I take Tobruk, I can worry about grabbing them for long-term victory point concerns. One of them I already own. It's in Libya. Well, no, actually, Britain owns the whole map. So, okay. So what did I do here? Launching an attack, unfortunately, across this ridge, which divides my strength by 3. So that's why I have a big stack here. I couldn't quite overrun. I didn't have enough movement points to do it. I might have been able to overrun this stack. Oh, I didn't have enough strength. No, because these guys, I did have the movement points. We've got like 13 points and 11 points. They had to all be stacked together to be overrun capable. And they're not able to do that. But they will be able to overrun this sucker. This guy's outside of reaction range. This guy's in reaction range, but he's got problems. He's got zones all over him, so he can't go anywhere. I'm outside of reaction range of the MSU, so that's not going anywhere. So the Brits are going to have to take it. Luckily for them, they have some significant force here. So we're looking at, oh, I positioned this here to block their route out, because otherwise they could just run along the highway. That guy's not in supply, but he will be after this combat. So we're looking at 11 and 13, and I've got my combined arms, so 24 strength points. Divided by 3 is 6. Or no, 8. That's not very good. There's 2 Brits, but they're halved for being out of supply, so there's 1. The artillery's not in supply, so it's not going to provide any support. It's not turn 3 yet, so I'm not getting any naval fire. So I'm looking at 8 to 1, which is pretty damn good. And that's going to be in the rough terrain. So it's table 10. I think I can get away without throwing any air points in at this point. I may need them to launch an attack, maybe on this hex. If I can get an attack there, maybe I can get to Tobruk before the Brits get there. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so we'll try this. 8 to 1 gave us the 10 table. Ugh, 11. No shifts either way. Okay. So an 11 is going to give me a partial. So the Brits get to choose something to hit, and they, of course, want to hit a German unit. They're going to hit the infantry this time. The armor kills more strength. Kill the armor. Yeah, they're going to hit the armor. And the armor ends up in the refit box. And yeah, I'm not going to rebuild this. Okay. And for the Brits, let's look at what their values are. All right. I don't worry about the MSU's morale at this point, because it's not actually, it's only when it's alone that it can be destroyed that way. Okay, so we're looking at 3s which turn to 4s. Those aren't good. Those are going to be destroyed, and they're out of supply, so I have to worry about them. And a 2 that turns to a 3, that's going to be taking a partial and a D4, so it too is destroyed. So I'm going to have to check morale on those. I get to advance. Now, I'm going to be in supply, so I might as well advance everyone in there. Let's see if I get the wagon. I do. That helps. Well, captured marker, remind me I can't use that. Which really kind of means, nah, I'm not going for Tobruk this turn, because my route, my supply line is stretched about as far as it can be. I could drop down to just 1 stack, or I could spread my supply line out and take a couple of supply unit losses for that race to be quicker going into Tobruk. I'm not sure which way to go. I'm so low on supplies. But I will have a couple of replacements, so if I lose 2, I'm not dead. I'm just not in great shape. All right, let's take a look at these guys and see if any of them survive. Well, the non-motorized do not. So they're over here. Now, it's important that I keep these here and not just throw them in a bag because of withdrawals, which are going to force me to pull specific units out of the game. I got to look for those units, and one of the first places you look is, hey, are they dead already? Another place you look is, did I withdraw them already under some other name? The artillery, though, might just survive. Nah. And I put that back. And the Brits are taking some pretty hefty losses there. All right. That gets us down to the motorized. Faced with a number of choices here with the Axis for their second movement phase. I noticed that actually this is the extent of my possible supply line. I can reach to here if I move this MSU up. Actually, I could go further because I've got another MSU, a couple MSUs here. But I need them to supply these two. Now I only need one of them if I'm only doing a single supply line through. That means I'd have to pull everything else back to Benghazi in that case, or within 6 movement points of Benghazi if I keep 2 trucks there. to keep my supplies in good shape. But I can launch an attack all the way over here on the fortification at Tobruk, actually. If I've got supplies here, obviously I can make it here. I could also probably even get some troops here that are in supply, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not quite. What about here? 4. Not sure I want to be there because of the this ridge there. But if I launch an attack just from here, it'll be just to get this fortification. It's not going to really get me in an assured Tobruk. Another option would be to bring more force up and take my loss on 2 MSUs. I'm going to gain another one here, and I've got one coming here, so I should be able to maintain the same kind of force pool, and I'm not getting a lot more troops in the near future. So that's actually a possibility, to trade supplies for movement speed. Another option is there's an MSU and a unit here. If I want to attack that, I pretty much have to forego the attack here. I can still grab this MSU and see if I get it, but this seems significantly less valuable than an attack on this fortress, so I think I'm going to go for the fortification. Especially since there actually is an MSU at that fortification. And that should actually be a dump, because I was planning on converting that to a level 2 fortification. For whatever that matters. It just means the Brits can't get out of there particularly easily. Okay. I don't know which way I'm going to go. But again, I'm going to take like 20 to 30 minutes to figure out what my move is going to be. That's the cost on this game. You really have to heavily think about your moves. Even though you don't have a lot of pieces on the board, a single action in this requires a great deal of weighing and optimization problems. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I'm putting these guys here, 13, 19, 13, 19, 20 points here to face 3. Let's make it 19. 6-to-1 attack there. And here I've got 4 strength points against 1. These guys are not going to be in supply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They can't reach back there. So they're out of supply for combat. So I think a 4-to-1 attack in the rough is good. Now, these guys can withdraw back towards Tobruk. The problem, of course, is, then I lose the hacks. Although, I'm not sure I actually do if there's reaction movement to get them out of the way. This guy cannot react because he's just ground units. And actually, yeah, these guys can withdraw. Then I'd be able to attack the dump, which cannot withdraw. That might be the best solution here, because I'm looking at a 6-to-1 in a fort. That's not terribly good, but what it does do is it makes the Germans, it allows the Germans to throw their air support both into this attack, which, if they're making both attacks, they may not have to. You'll notice I've pushed some of my other units forward. The reason for that is next turn, by the time I need to have general supply again, some of these are going to be dumps instead of MSUs. And I've moved my supply line forward in a sense. This is the weird thing with this game. So the MSUs serve as kind of a network, but they're not what you want to rely on. I can't trace my supply all the way back to El Aguila using MSUs, but I can just convert MSUs to dumps, and then they can supply straight up the number of strength points that I could channel through them as MSUs. So if I build kind of a sturdy network here near Tobruk, I have enough supplies to run my entire siege of Tobruk. Anyway, I got to think a little bit about whether or not the Allies, whether or not the Commonwealth wants to pull out of this space. Remember, I can't do it here. Well, I held in this location, got pushed back, And I get to take my truck with me because it's mobile. However, here I did not get to take the dump with me. That hex got taken, and that's important because Tobruk is almost impossible to take if the Brits can hold kind of a perimeter around it. It's pretty hard anyway. We're going to be pushing more and more troops up to try to prevent the Germans from getting there. I've retreated back though, and we're disordered there, or disrupted. Took a step loss. It's not looking good so far, but that's okay. And now I got to figure out before I go to the Allied turn which depots, which places I can afford to convert to depots. So probably what I'm going to be doing is up here where I've got forward units. These guys are going to convert. See, I need them if they're going to attack. That's the problem. I got to think a little bit. These guys aren't part of my supply line anyway, so they can turn into dumps safely. I still have my line going through here. This one I'm going to leave as a truck simply because that's easier. Such luck. I can't convert them from MSUs to dumps while they've got the captured supply marker. Now that remains there until the beginning of my next reinforcement phase. So I also can't use them as part of my supply net during that time. That causes, obvious problems where I'm chaining my supplies. If I were able to be attacked on a broad stroke by the Allies, they don't have the troops to do that anywhere in my area. They can only hit up here, and I can supply these. This guy can't attack. He's disordered or disrupted, so he's going to have to kind of fall back on Tobruk. But if I could, it would be terrible because I've got units exposed that could easily be attacked. But the Brits just do not have the troops to launch an offensive at this point. What they're going to be trying to do is claw their way into holding Tobruk. Now, I can't hold the perimeter around Tobruk at all because the fall of this fort more or less ensures that now it's going to be the fight for Tobruk. And now the question is, well, can I hold one hex or something? And that becomes difficult because then the Axis can kind of concentrate on that weak spot that's outside of Tobruk. Which means, well, Tobruk is a supply source in this game. So it's not too terrible, and I don't have to retreat from it. So in a lot of ways, I'm okay there. It's just not the optimal situation to be sieged in Tobruk. As with all games I've been playing recently, I'm really taking my time actually playing. Not taking my time playing it, but I'm stretching out the breaks between turns. That's how I feel like being right now. So here, we're in the Commonwealth side of the turn. They get 4 refit points, which I just marked there. And they're going to get an MSU and their armor rating. They're not going to get an air point, which is okay. Be careful, I'm wearing this long shirt thing. MSU, I'm not sure where I want to drop it. Do I want it actually in Alexandria, or do I want it 2 hexes ahead? The question there is whether or not it's going to be the thing that I'm doing naval transport with. Supply, well, Tobruk has its supply source, so I don't actually need trucks there. So I'm going to put it a couple hexes outside of Alexandria. Meanwhile, I get these reinforcements. Now, one problem with this game, if it's a problem, start NT, that's naval transport, is that you have to watch each turn and look up here, hey, is anything withdrawing? Now, I'm kind of cheating on that by putting these little blank markers in place whenever anything weird's going on the Commonwealth track. That way, if nothing weird is, I can just bring in the units that are coming in. And in this case, I want to get something that will help me defend Tobruk in there real fast. This sucker is a heavy weapons unit with artillery. That's about as good as it gets. It's got 3 strength points. I don't have anything that big. And it's got an artillery shift. So that's what's going to go here in Alexandria, and I'm going to ship that in. Now you might say that's kind of foolish. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3. Actually, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I can get that real close by taking the rail with it and driving. And you know what? I have 2 movement rounds this turn. So I'm going to put him, well, he's going to be in Alexandria because he's going to be the guy taking the rail this turn. I'm going to instead put this infantry unit over here to ship that in. That's 3 strength points, nothing special there. This is actually even bigger once I refit it. And I have refit points. Let me make sure. And, you know, there's just tremendous amounts of decision to be made in this game on a lot of things. I can't read that with my eyes. Wow. I'm getting bad. That looks like it's a brigade, not a battalion. There are no battalions in this game. Okay, so a heavy weapons brigade is going to cost me 2 points to refit, and I clearly have that. So this is actually going to be the unit that I'm going to ship into Tobruk. It's my strongest piece. I'll have more troops coming in later, so I'll put these infantry up here to travel on the road. And I only get 1 naval transport, so I'll put the rest of them there, assuming I'm within stacking conditions, and I'm not sure I am. Is that 2? Oh, that's the turn. Yeah, I've got plenty of stacking here. Okay, and now we're gonna try to push forward and see what we can get into place. But the biggest decision at this point is really what troops, you know, what's going where. And that's going to be a decision that always happens in the game. Do you want the 2 extra movement points by placing outside Alexandria, or are you going to use naval transport to get something into place? Screwed up. I want these guys all on the rail so they can use the rail movement. And I'm going to leave this guy at Alexandria, of course, because he's going to be the second turn, the motorized movement naval transport into play. These disrupted units have half movement point allowance. I'll try to get them, this one, into safety. These guys are staying in Tobruk. And I'll be moving these guys forward, of course. I'll be back. Am I allowed to rail move 1 unit or stack, stacking point? I chose, so I moved my guys back up on the road, but I chose to shift this infantry here so I can extend the rail. Everything else is funneling as quickly as possible into Tobruk itself. Got this poor guy, he's going to be stuck out here in the open. He's probably destroyed because of his reduced movement points. I can pull the truck in during the mobile movement point phase. But now the Axis gets a reaction. And there is some risk here of an attack on this position if the Axis is not careful. The problem is that some of these units could slide up and cut the supply line here, and then I could launch an attack. So the Axis does have to react here, and they do have to do something to protect themselves. And in particular, they also have this MSU here, which they're going to have to move out of the way because it's at risk. Or actually, they're going to have to cover. Well, they may just be losing that if the Commonwealth wants to charge in there. The Commonwealth throwing troops after an MSU might be a bad move, so I might count on trying not to protect that. There's no zone here, no zone here. The danger would be if a British unit were placed here. I think that cuts off all supply here. A unit with supply. And alternatively, there may have to be something a little closer here too, because this will cut these spaces. Tobruk ranges out 2 hexes, I think, because there's nothing adjacent to it, so this counts as a zone for supply purposes, so they would be cut off if I can't protect the line here. Now, a unit can't go here without attacking whatever's here. If I just throw that there. And I'm going to have to make a morale check on that unit. So rather than take a risk of it being a depleted unit, I'm going to throw the Germans back there. I don't think the Commonwealth's likely to attack in either case, either of those locations, as long as I protect it. But if I do not protect this line, an out of supply force there, that might be worth hitting. The Allies continue their movement. This is my defensive position because this is where the infantry could reach. That's what it worked out to be. I would rather be up here. I've moved a truck into place. Question is whether or not I want to try to build a fortification there. A level 1 fortification doesn't help me because that's already rough terrain. A level 2 fortification would be an immense aid, but I would rather have that here. So I'm going to withhold building the fortification, although I did move a truck into place to give myself that freedom. I don't remove this quite yet. I'll do that in a moment. First I get to pay for this. I want to replace this, and as I said, it's 2 points out of my refit pile. I've got other choices in my refit pile. This one that's damaged I can't replace because he's under a disrupted marker right now. So he's not available to have his damage repaired. The other choice that I have is the 7-7, which is a mechanized brigade. And unfortunately, mechanized brigades are not covered on here. I'm going to treat it as if it's an infantry unit. In the end, it works out. Oh, wait. Yeah, mechanized regiments are here. So that's the question. Should it have... And you could say the same about these motorized things. I think I'm going to charge as if it is a regiment. In which case I can't even rebuild the first step of that yet. I'll try to remember that decision. Anyway, that's the end of turn 2. And we're seeing the fight beginning to develop in the Tobruk region. I'll try to get turn 3 on this video as well before I load it up, because there's going to be a lot of videos, if no matter what. But if I'm looking at this level of detail and breaking them up as much as I am, it's going to be kind of painful, and I probably won't look at this level of detail. Okay, so here we are at the start of turn 3, and this is the first time we got to do some special things. First thing we deal with is we want to recharge points. So the Axis has 2 air points that come back to them. That weren't lost last turn. But the next thing is we have to deal with this initiative range. 2 to 10 it says. And that's the chance that the Axis gets to choose who goes first. The Axis gets the choice. They're going to go first, I think. Of course, every decision in this game is a really tough one. And I would agonize over these decisions very heavily, especially solitaire. Maybe one of the reasons I'm kind of pulling back from playing as much, but I've got video games again that are sucking me, and they tend to do that in the winter, I guess. And other things too, but the reason I want to go is I want to try to get the drop on Tobruk before it starts getting too potent. I don't know if I'm going to get that chance. It's beginning to get there. I may not be able to break it easily. It's a very tough nut. And on the race for Tobruk scenario, I think I don't know if it's this turn. I think it's turn 5 you have to get to it. Yeah, you have turn 5 to get Tobruk. It's hard. Anyway, let's see. I should probably look at the sequence of play every now and then. Nothing too important there. Okay, let's see our reinforcements here. We need to get access points now. What do our numbers say? That's CW. Let's see what our numbers say. We have a German and an Italian refit point. The German one's probably not enough to do anything with. No Axis air points. And we're still at an Axis armor rating of 1. We get to roll on our convoy table. There are no modifiers there. A roll of 4 is good. That gives me 3 little trucks to bring into play. I'm not even sure what my situation is, but basically I'm going to be... these go away. I'm going to be developing my supply network that's necessary to launch the attack on Tobruk. Now, if I can take Tobruk with good odds without waiting for my supply network to build up fully, which is to say if I'm, tracing supplies back and end up losing a dump and losing a truck, I'm going to do it because Tobruk's too much of a pain in the ass. It will cost me time and effort, and I need to get it out of the way to get as far as I can into Egypt. I mean, I can take Bardia, but that's about the limit without taking Tobruk. I need Tobruk in order to be able to use my supplies to push forward to the east. And the faster you can get it, the more of a chance you have of getting the breakthrough you need that'll get you to Alexandria and win you the big game. If you can't take Tobruk, in a sense, if you're playing Trail of the Fox, as I am, but I won't be if I go all the way over to Alexandria. I may end up trying to play that again later as a standalone. But if you don't make it to Alexandria, and you almost never will, in a sense, if you're playing Trail of the Fox, you probably ought to hang it up and build up your forces. That's what I do not want to do, so I want to make sure that I'm trying to win Desert Fox at the same time. Of course, Desert Fox, you also have this desire not to let the enemy pass. If you can't take Alexandria, you might as well, just fortify yourself and try to make your minimal victory conditions or whatever. But that doesn't represent the campaign at all. And that's why you don't play war games just to win, right? Okay. Button to remove the disrupted counters from the Commonwealth units. I did that now. So I counted up the Commonwealth, and let's see, we had 5, 6, 7, 8 strength points here. That's not right. I think I came to 11 a moment ago, or something. Maybe 13. 5, 6, 7, 8, 13. 13 strength points with 2 column shifts from the artillery. Now, looking at the Tobruk chart, 3 to 1 is sort of a big hump, and that's kind of the minimum of what I'd like to get. So I need like 39 strength points of Axis units. When I look here, I have 11, 19, 24, 28, 29, 30, 32, 35. The artillery you can't add in. I have 35. None of these units, not even the big, rather quick armor. I really need to get my units stacked all in the same direction there. None of them, they were on the track and I just didn't look. I guess I'm not sure why they're not perfectly stacked on the track either, but and that's beginning to bother me. None of those units is able to actually make it into Tobruk to attack. Now, in addition to attacking Tobruk, I've got to attack this piece at the very least, because there's no way well, maybe not. I could kind of, no, there's no way I'm going to get to here. Well, I could infiltrate, because that's a single stacking point of foot units. So I'm going to try to focus on seeing if I can take this out. This is 2, 6, 7, 8 strength points. I mean, this is obvious. 8 strength points in the rough. I'd like to get 3 to 1 on that too. So I'd like to try to aim for 24 strength points to hit this. Then on my second combat round, the pure motorized, not that I have a lot of infantry here. And you know, I mean, sure, I could maybe limp these Italian infantry up to conduct the siege. And that's what I'll have to do if I don't win it within a couple of turns. And that's expensive too, because supplies are my real limitation in this game. But I could at least cordon it off with them. Anyway, it is possible that I could maybe fight this and then be in a position to hit Tobruk with the rest of my units right off the bat. And that's what I'm going to try to develop out of this situation. It's one of those games where if you don't allow people to move their pieces back, the turns are going to take a lot longer. So as an example, I threw a couple of my Italian units back around here. I was able to get their movement point allowance to there. Now, I could have just tentatively put a note to indicate that's where I had to be. The problem is I couldn't get supply there. I converted these 3 MSUs into dumps. That's going to be what I need. Now, maybe I could have. Maybe I could have used a rear thing and chained the supply up, because I've got these 3 more trucks coming up. I don't know when they're going to come into play, but it looks unlikely. It looks like I'm going to need 3 supplies. This has 6 stacking points that I can get into against it. And you know, you have to do all this balancing here. This part of the game, the supply part of the game, might appeal to certain Euro-style gamers very much more than it does to me. Because you have to keep into account how many stacking points you're going to use to avoid, you know, going over your limits for supplies. Now, I need another truck here because I got 6 stacking points. I'm going to use 2 dumps and 2 trucks to haul the stuff there. And then I need another set of supplies to haul and attack against this. But anyway, from here, I could not get, because my movement would have been 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have had to get a truck to here. I could not get one from that close, except for the dumps that I had just converted. So, instead of tracing my supplies all the way back to El Aguila or who knows where, I mean, I could have had a dump back here or something that I'm tracing to. I'm choosing to attack from only one direction. The first attack was much better because it was because I had the opponent surrounded. Maybe it's worth doing that in order to prevent him from having supplies. So now I got to think about that possibility. Do I want to attack out of supply? Well, let me look. I think I do. I think the hell with it. Because if these 11 points are out of supply, that becomes 5, 10, 18 strength points, but these guys are halved as well. 1, 3, to some 4 strength points. So I've got 4 to 1 odds instead of the 3 to 1 that I would have had. That adds a little bit, but I also cut their retreat capabilities. Now, there is the problem that I become disrupted automatically at the battle, but that's okay. I think I'm gaining something by cutting his supply there. And now I'll work. Okay, so now I still need a second truck available to help these guys because I've got 4 stacking points there instead of 3. And I have to make sure my artillery's in supply or else it's useless. And now I'm going to prepare my attack on this unit as well. Crap. No, none of these could be dumps. Well, this one can't, and this one can't. I think this one was one of my trucks, which means I'm going to have a harder job. But I need to create dumps back in Benghazi and here instead and try to chain the supplies from there. I forgot, these guys were captured supply up here. Those dumps had to be created during my refit phase, and I screwed up and didn't do that. You're going to see a lot of that with this game where I go back and say, ah, shit, I couldn't have made that mistake. So the final setup for it all. I got 2 dumps back here. I've got some trucks here, a couple trucks here, another dump here. This dump is, I believe, I hope, let's see. I don't know where I'm channeling this from. That's my worry. I may have lost track of who's going to get supplies to this. Uh-oh. Got a truck here. I may need another unit here to supply that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm not gonna get there. Oh boy. So these guys actually, 1, 2, can supply from there. I can keep the truck back there. Now it all works. This truck here was kind of an attempt to try to supply through there. Anyway, so what I've got is 2 lines of trucks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, getting 2 of these dumps, this one, actually I could even bring both of those up, into this combat range. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's only the artillery there, 7, the rest are 0 strength point things. So I need a oh, no, make that 6. I'm not, this one's not in there. So I've got no more than 3 steps using combat supply in each case, which is the key because that means I don't lose anything. They're both intrinsic supply lines. They both go back to 1 dump. They don't overuse anything, I hope. I got 5 here using this truck, and then the rest can use the other. No, 3 and 2. They can both use either of these trucks. So, yeah, I'm fine. It is a headache to calculate the networks for supply. It ends up getting easier when the battlefields become more set piece. Of course, by that point, if that happens, it's very hard to break through. And that's perfectly historically accurate. All right, let me handle the attacks. I'll do them offline and give you the reaction. Oh, reaction movement. Well, the Brits aren't going to have to stick around here. They don't have a lot of movement. They have a quarter of that, which is like 3 movement points. Clear is just, no, clear is 2 for them. I'll run away. You know, I don't want to be fought there, but I'm kind of lost and I've got to try to inch my way back. It's very hard to attack units if you don't surround them. They'll just leave. Otherwise, though, I have the opportunity to push some of my Brits into here. I'm not pinned in any way. I can move next to this and force it to attack me, and thereby make the Axis attack much worse. I'm going to do that. This could be the end for the Axis, really. But I can't keep, you know, backing up over things. The kind of thinking involved in this game is torturous for me. Given the nature of what's going on, I've gotten 8 strength points that I'm going to launch against this. 12 strength points that I'm going to launch against this. Now that's divided by 3 because of the damn ridge, so it's only 4. There's 8 strength points defending here. I could have actually thrown more in, but I don't want to weaken Tobruk too much. It can't be overrun. I'm not quite sure why, to tell you the truth, but why I don't want to throw more strength points in. But anyway, this is what I did. I only could have thrown a couple more in because I have to leave a combat unit in there or else it can fall. So it's a supply source, and I've opened up supply here, but that can be rectified. So now I've got a 1-2 attack over there. We each have 2 artillery pieces. They have a heavy weapons unit with artillery. I'm going to throw both my air units into this, giving me a total of 2 shifts in my favor. It's in the clear at 1-2. That's the 2 column. I could get lucky here, but then I have still another attack that is not the one that I intended. Okay. Let's see. That puts me to 5, which doesn't have an air thing. Drops me up to 7. Now, let's see what happens. For the Germans, they're going to get a retreat. Or mainly Italians there. For the Brits, everything looks like it's 2 morale. They're going to retreat. Well, I drew off some of the attack. Quite a bit, actually. And that means see, you're not facing fixed units in this game, which is what's kind of cool about it. Here I have a total of 10 strength points, and they have 6, 7, 8, 4. So here I have 2-1, but in the rough, which puts me on column 3, and I have no more artillery or anything to throw into this. So this is actually perhaps a rougher attack. But I get to 8, no mods. The attacker takes no effect, and here's where it gets ugly. The defender has 2 and 3 morale. 2 morale is going to be retreats. 3 morale is a D4P. That's going to wipe that all out because it's surrounded. These go forward. These are automatically disrupted. I think there may be a chance that they're depleted as well. I have to check that. And these guys are all destroyed. The infantry are just gone. They ain't coming back. But then we make checks. Oh, the truck. The truck I may have captured. 1, 2, 3, I get it. Nope. That's gone. But these other units, I have to roll 1, 2, or 3 to keep. One of them goes in the refit box. One of them's gone for good. Let me check to see if those Italians are depleted as well. So that just basically knocks it out of this round's combat for now on. And I feel like I've gotten a success, but it wasn't the one I was planning for, in the sense that I was expecting to be able to get that rather easily, and instead I had a fairly painful attack, actually 2 painful attacks, both at significant risk. And that's an interesting thing in this game, is that you never really know what you're attacking, and I forget about this burden here. You know, I have good memories of the game, but the combat system, the interactions of what you have to do to plan for your attacks and how easily the enemy can react out of them and to cause problems for you, these things kind of elude me, and I forget how hard it is to actually play it. On the other hand, the combat table is fairly benign. As you can see, you know, I got away with a 1-2 and a 2-1 attack, not in the best of terrains in the latter case. No shifts in my favor in the latter case, yet it all kind of worked. What's wrong? Well, Tobruk's coast. Oh, jeez, this was coastal. I could have used naval artillery there, I think. Oh well. I'm only allowed to use it once, I think. I gotta look that up. Yes, the Brits have another point of naval. They have a point of naval artillery they could have thrown in. That would have counted as a point of artillery in their defense on the coastal hex that was attacked. I forgot that was coastal. It felt more inland. But here's the issue. If I spent that, I get 1 per player turn. If I spent that, I would not get it when I attack if Tobruk is attacked. So in a sense, I felt like I had a pretty good defense there. However, had I spent it and done enough damage, the attack on Tobruk would have been impossible anyhow. Anyway, now we go to the motorized movement phase. We'll see if the Axis can do any better, but I need a break after that. Alright, so I've got my 3-1 attack against Tobruk, and I've moved a lot of trucks under there so that I'll be able to put a lot of supply sources right around Tobruk after this battle. Either way, you know, I'll be set up to fight it or to launch my attacks further eastward. This actually looks pretty bad for the Commonwealth. Things could have gone very poorly for the Axis there on some of those low odds attacks, I guess. But now with this 3-1 position, even if I don't take it, I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to be able to keep attacking it. Now, the Commonwealth can ship troops into there, but this is a pretty close attack, and there's nothing here. Yeah, I do have some reinforcements coming on, but I don't think it's sufficient to crack the Tobruk siege at this point, which is going to be problematic. I've got 3 supply lines. I've got to count my units. I think I'm at only 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'm at 10. I've only got 3 supply lines, which means something is going to have to go over the 3 points. Now this was necessary to get the 3-1. So I want to take the least damage that I can. And what I'm going to do for that is just destroy this one dump that I could reach without any motors coming. I'll be channeling some 5 stacking points into that dump. But that's going to get eaten, and it's just gone. Unlike Africa, you're not funneling supply, you're building supply net in this game, which is it's a different feel. It really is. This is more complicated and more of a headache, but it also allows you to see a different kind of flavor of game. Okay, now we're at counting up the shifts, and I have, it looks like 3 artillery shifts for the Germans, and I think it's 4 for the Allies when they throw their naval gun power in. So I've got 1 shift against. No air power can go into this. The Commonwealth hasn't gotten their air point yet in their reinforcements phase. This is a big fight. We're on column 4. We've got 1 shift against. We've got some chance of taking this, but not very good. Remember, retreats don't give you Tobruk. Oh, that's not going to help. Okay, so that puts me to table 5. but then with a shift against gets me back to 4. And I'm taking a big retreat result for the Axis and really nothing for the Allies. So this is a worst case scenario for the German Italian forces here. All right, well, I'll retreat them out of there. All those casualties, there's no way I'm going to be able to take a refit. Everything was disrupted. Took the casualty on this sucker. Converted some of the retreated units into dumps. This leaves this open now. It's weird because you can halt a retreat at a city, but you can't halt a retreat at a fortification line. A fortification line will prevent a retreat result. Not absolutely prevent. What it does is it subtracts 3 off the result. But as you can see, the Brits did not get large numbers there, and they probably were not going to. The failure to retreat results in an extra depletion, which is why that pretty much means units get destroyed when they fail to retreat. Oh boy. Well, guess we're on to the Brits phase here. How much can they do? Quite a bit. First of all, they can retake this fortification, which is an important forward position. They can threaten these units, which may not even be in supply anymore. They can't draw supply. Well, they can't do anything with this truck. So 1, there's a dump, so that's a little bit more. 2, 3, 4.5, 5.5, 6, 7.5, 8.5, 9. Yeah, they're not going to be able to trace coming around this way, I don't think. So the attack coming from this direction will cut off the supply of these units. I think things are going very, very badly for Rommel. This is a really tough game to manage your attacks in. Far, far harder to get them precise enough rather than, say, the way the OCS works, where you can kind of shoot from the hip in a lot of cases. I got enough supply in the area, you know. And although the combat table can be very friendly, it doesn't always turn out that way. This is a devastating result. It doesn't look like it. You know, there aren't any dead units. There's 1 reduced good German infantry. There's always this interesting question. Do you want to kill infantry or do you want to kill armor? Armor tends to have higher strength, but armor doesn't work without the infantry there. So if you reduce the big infantry units, and in this case an 8-point infantry is pretty damn big, you're reducing the overall strength perhaps by a bigger factor than if you just reduce a big old armor unit. It's a hard question. And then there's the fact that destroyed armor is kind of cool because it can come back when the armor rating goes up. All right. So one thing I was a little confused about, air points are used in each player turn. So the Germans got to recuperate their 2 air points in case they're attacked. Annoying guy outside because of the auto lot chatting with the guy who owns the car, trying to arrange to get the keys back or whatever. I don't know. Really obnoxious though. I liked the trenching tools a lot better than some guy who lives under me. I'm hoping they're moving. Anyway, shipped 1 damaged unit into Tobruk with the intention that I can refit it. I had to look that up. A lot of little rolls in this game. You know, like all SPI games, it packs it in, S&T games, packs into 12 pages of rolls. Quite a big game, actually, you know, in terms of the total amount of effect you have to deal with. I wish the fuck that guy would shut up. I can't think when people are talking. Okay. So, the big question is, could I launch an attack against this stuff? And there's 11 strength points. I probably can cut it out of supply, which brings it down to 5, which means I'd need 10. I could manage that 10 pretty easily. There's my 10. Unfortunately, that leaves me with only 3 strength points to do a supply overrun on these trucks. And that's where the whole call is whether or not I want to do that. Now, I could wait and use my motorized movement phase to attack these things. At that point, all this armor becomes available. I'm going to ship another armored unit into place, help protect Tobruk. It's absolutely vital for me, though, to have units defending in here. And that's kind of the trouble. I can do the supply overrun on the second turn, on the motorized move. Okay. The only difficulty here is I'm sending this big heavy weapons unit forward into a location that I didn't really want to put it, but I will do that, and I'm going to launch an attack on this unit. Now, he doesn't have to stick around. He can do a withdrawal because everything is at least as fast as the English units attacking it, which may mean this guy had enough movement I could throw him in. And by simply throwing him into play there, and I believe he has supply from Bardia, but he doesn't really matter. I have to check that because Bardia may only be for non-motorized supply. I've got a truck. I moved here. Not going to be able to get that into play. But by surrounding him, I force it so that he can't actually... oh no, that's not the case. Yeah, there's still no zone here. So I want to be in Bardia. Yeah, I can slip out this way. So there's not a lot I can do except chase them away. That's kind of the problem with this. If I did it in the motorized movement, I could throw a couple of units in here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to launch my supply overruns, and this guy is far enough away he won't get a reaction attack, a reaction move. So then I can hit him from both directions. Now this armor is going to be halved, unfortunately, and I can't get any. I don't think I can get any motorized stuff here. The problem, well, my foot infantry isn't going to be able to be in the attack either. But that's okay, I'll have enough total odds. Well, I got to check about Bardia's supply status, whether or not it's real supply. Bardia is not real supply, so I'm going to be moving this truck up. That should be able to get me within range from Charing Cross. 1, 2. If I get the truck to here, then that gets me to supply to Tobruk, or to the Tobruk salient, where I can support that. So I'm going to concentrate now on the supply overruns. I can't really do anything against these units. They're almost as strong, and they're just too risky for me to go out patrolling there, but I think I can deal with that. Our net effect there, because the morale was a D6 partial because they couldn't withdraw, well, I'm left with one disrupted armor unit there. Great. Now the Brits get their refit. And in particular, I want to refit this New Zealander infantry brigade. That's going to cost me 2. I have lots of refit points now. I don't have to trace back to Alexandria, which is kind of cool. I took a partial here. These are in normal supply. I want to get an armored regiment into play. Unfortunately, there are no armored regiments, and I think... Oh no, this is a battalion, yeah. There are some places where this refit chart doesn't quite cover every case. So the armor is only going to cost me 1 to rebuild. That's another reason not to hit armor. I had an option there. I could have hit that heavy weapons unit, which would have cost 2. I'm going to do that instead, just because I know the Brits are going to rebuild everything, so I'm not really doing anything to them if I'm just hitting a unit that's been damaged. Now, outside of that, I've got things here to rebuild. I'd like to rebuild the mechanized infantry. Mechanized infantry battalion. See, there's one that doesn't even exist on here. Again, I'm guessing that I'm going to charge the in-between here that I had before as if it's a regiment. So that'll cost 5 to rebuild, and I'll just rebuild that whole thing. Not rebuilding, a big unit like that is kind of a problem. But here's the problem. Maybe that unit has to leave soon. 7 sept 7, and this is the kind of crap that you have to deal with throughout. So I'm going to be losing units very soon. And I know 7 sept 7 comes off the map. I don't want to rebuild it fully if that's the case. I want to rebuild it as a partial unit, because then it'll go off the board as a partial unit and, save me some refits. But I'm going to have that unit for a while, so I'll rebuild that to full strength. You're often going to be making mistakes in the sense of things that you could have optimized better in the game. In terms of the refits, in terms of your supply path, in terms of your attacks, in terms of everything. This game becomes a tremendous optimization problem and a very painful one, but it still gets a lot of my respect as a game. I forgot to try to rebuild anything for the Italians, but I don't think there was anything they really wanted to rebuild. The only thing I would have maybe wanted to rebuild was if I had taken a hit on German armor, which I haven't. Is this a regiment? Oh, these were all disrupted. Yeah, this is a regiment, so this unit is ripe for rebuilding. It's an infantry regiment. It's only going to cost me 1 to rebuild. That was the big expensive loss that I had last turn. But the Brits, unlike the Germans, they need to weaken the... Well, I don't know. I'm kind of making the debate of, does it matter which units you take? Well, in both cases, which units are on the field right now may be more important than the refit points that are available in terms of the short-term strategy. But if something's disrupted, that's a different case, because the unit that I would have damaged here just gets rebuilt and it has no effect on play. Anyway, we didn't take any air loss. The net roll, I think, was a 7. Naval fire, all the artillery, everything like that went into this, and that's what we got. And all the air points. So I guess we're going to move into the 4th turn, and this was May. I'll load this one up. It's been a long, long video.